What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that I feel like I just need to say at this point. I think it's gone a little bit too far. So for anyone who, maybe has been living under a rock, you know that for the past couple of months, World of Warcraft Classic private servers, especially these Classic Plus servers, have been on the rise. We've seen some really good ones. We've seen some really poor done ones, right? And I'm just going to come out and say it, that the trailer for Warcraft Reborn, done by Ascension, came out a little over 24 hours ago, maybe 2 days ago at this point, and I watched it. And I want to start this off by saying I have a shitload of respect for the devs behind all these private servers. The shit that they pull off, man, everything that they're able to accomplish, the world design, all this stuff really is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But after I watched the Warcraft Reborn official overview trailer, I just can't help but feel like we're at a point now where, like, people are looking at this and looking to this for Classic Plus, right? All these private servers, because that's all they have. That's all people can look to. We don't have an official Blizzard Classic Plus, and we probably won't for a really long time. We have so much coming for Classic WoW, right? We have the Naxx phase and anniversary, then we're going through an entire TBC. We have Mists of Pandaria running, so the odds of us getting a Classic Plus anytime soon are way down, way down. It ain't happening anytime soon. It's very far in advance, and I'm starting to feel like we're at a really, really rough point right now where, like, all of this Classic Plus private server stuff is coming out, and whether it's against TOS or not, whether it's copyright or not, people are playing on there. And the problem is these people are playing on there, and Blizzard isn't responding with anything of equal value, or even something that's not even of equal value, but like an official response to it in terms of like something people can play that do want a Classic Plus. And I've talked about this a million times before when I was saying that I feel like Blizzard really is dropping the ball here, and they should have just launched a Classic Plus and developed it as we went along. With small updates here and there. It could have just been vanilla WoW with maybe TBC talents or Wrath talents, whatever they want to do, and just every few months drop a new update, a new leveling zone, a new endgame raid, a new reputation, and all this stuff, and kind of develop it as we go along, just like Turtle WoW did. We all know that Turtle WoW is currently being sued by Blizzard, but either way, I don't want to go down that whole road. We've talked about that a million times. What this video is about is, I want you all to understand that this is my personal opinion as well, right? Everyone is entitled to their opinions, and I'd like you to voice them in the comments below. But I watched the Warcraft Reborn official overview, the trailer that Ascension WoW put out. And Ascension WoW does great work. They have some really talented devs, and same with Turtle WoW and RIP Epoch. But either way, I just feel like watching that trailer, I was like, this is where it starts to get a little bit skewed. Because to me, a lot of the things that they talked about in that trailer, which I won't show the whole trailer here on the channel. You guys can go, watch it on your own time. It's on the Ascension YouTube. It becomes a little bit too much. And when I say too much, let me elaborate. When I say it becomes too much, I mean there is this charm that Classic WoW has, right? And I think that's what the game has going for it. It's simplicity. Its ability to kind of let you just play through the game how you want, and there's not an abundance of systems and overly complex mechanics and too much stuff going on to the point where it takes away from the world. And I think that is the charm that Classic WoW has. So in my opinion, an official Classic Plus wouldn't be this over-the-top thing with a million different systems and enhancements and enchants and all this stuff. It would just be a version of Classic that kind of just emphasizes what already worked, what made the game special, the world, the leveling, the experience, the journey, the unknown, right? It's not about adding all these complex systems. It's not about adding a million different ways to play your class and all these type of things. Yes, there is definitely room for improvement when it comes to like class design and some of the systems, but there is such a thing as over the top. And in my opinion, personally, absolutely no disrespect to Ascension or Warcraft Reborn, but this is a little too over the top for me. And I think personally, if Blizzard were to look for a private server Classic Plus and base their official Classic Plus on that experience, in my opinion, it would be Turtle WoW, because the experience really stays true to vanilla. It really does give you that living, immersive world that everyone fell in love with, 20 plus years ago at this point. And they delivered on that in so many ways. And I think that, if Blizzard looks at these private servers for ideas or things to, basically copy and put in their own thing, let's be real, I just feel like some of them are too over the top. And I do personally think Warcraft Reborn is over the top. It to me feels like retail WoW just set in levels 1 through 60 Azeroth. And it's because there's just too many systems, right? Like we could look at the website, right? Let's pull up the website. There are some really cool things, right? Like the expanded open world. Obviously, that's awesome. Like why? Who wouldn't want to see that, right? This is cool stuff. Like expanding on the world. This is definitely something that, in my opinion, does fit in a Classic Plus. This should be the main emphasis of Classic Plus, expanding that world, making it bigger than we all know, right? Like RPG creature overhaul, where like creatures have specific weaknesses and strengths and stats, right? So this mob has low armor, so that like physical damage is going to hit this thing harder, or like maybe fire mobs are weak to ice and stuff like that, kind of like a Pokemon style strength and weaknesses thing. Yeah, here you go, like a Voidcaster being weak to holy damage. I really like this. It adds to the RPG elements of the game. So stuff like this I think is great, and it does belong in a Classic Plus. But then there's other things, right? Like if we get down here to expanded classes, you have these things called like legendary mystic enchantments. And essentially what these are is runes that like empower your abilities. And this is where I think it gets, a little bit too convoluted. It's way too far, in my opinion. It starts to feel gimmicky, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It starts to feel very gimmicky. This is like, a lot of people thought SOD was very gimmicky and arcadey, and it was. It was a very arcadey and gimmicky version of Classic. It was an experimental server. It was a lot of fun, and it had a lot of bad things about it as well, right? But when you start to get into this territory, where like your class has now been completely redone, it has wrath talents, it has new abilities that have never been in the game before or whatever, then you're like scouring through the world, finding things that empower your abilities even further. This to me starts to feel very gimmicky. It starts to feel very like mobile gamey. It almost makes it feel like you're so disconnected from whatever's happening because you're just trying to find these enhancements and all this other stuff. And you're like, oh, cool, I'm in a group with this guy, but he found his legendary mystic enchantment, so I can't even compete on DPS with him because we're the same class and he has that and I don't. Like, it adds a little bit too much, in my opinion. Like a lot of the elements of like reworking the older items, right, to be better. Like looking down here, immersive gear drops. Creatures in Azeroth drop the actual gear that they're wearing, both in looks and with new RPG stats. Absolutely awesome thing, right? I think Blizzard should look at stuff like that and put it in Classic Plus. It would immerse you further into the game, because if mobs are dropping the items they're wearing, like, and they look like that, and they have stats kind of like that as well, that really does add to the immersion. I like that. Open world RPG items. You're finding RPG loot from Elden times, like rings, weapons, and armor scattered through Azeroth so you can power up while you're out in the open world. Very cool. Adds to the RPG element. But again, there is such a thing as over the top, and that's something that I think is really important when Blizzard is developing Classic Plus, if they're developing Classic Plus, whatever it is. I just think that certain things have no place in Classic Plus. And it's things like that, like the mystic spell enhancements and all this stuff. It becomes too complicated. It becomes retail, and this is what nobody wants to play. This stuff already exists in retail, and if that's what people wanted to play, they would. Now, this is a private server, and Ascension is obviously going to do whatever they want, and I'm sure it'll be popular, right? They put out great products all the time. But I think for an official Classic Plus, Blizzard needs to look more towards the Turtle WoW direction, right? The game essentially is vanilla WoW with added content and slight quality of life improvements. Keeps some of that friction that everyone is used to in vanilla WoW, that keeps you playing, that keeps you wanting to log in, that keeps it being like, not every class is the best, not every class does this, but there's a reason to bring every class to a raid. There's a reason to bring every class to a dungeon. And it's not super crazy to a point where, you're able to have paladins pull 300 mobs and sit there and tank them and things like that. Because when it gets out of control, like we're looking at here, that's what inevitably ends up happening. And to me, that's extremely immersion breaking. Things like Mythic Plus vanilla dungeons, this could be cool. I'd love to see it tested in like a vanilla environment and see how that turns out. But without all the flair, without all the crazy enchants on your spells and Wrath of a Lich King talents and new abilities. And if it gets to a point, right? And I want to answer one thing first where people are saying, oh, but this even looks like retail. There is like, they have a toggle in game to use classic models. And I'm showing this because I think this is an amazing feature that a lot of these servers are starting to use. And definitely something Blizzard should look into if they're planning on upgrading the models or the graphics in any way. There should definitely be a toggle to use the updated graphics, whatever they go with, and also keep the classic graphics as well. I think that's super important. Because there's some people who play the game because they like that classic feel. And then there's other people who want to play the game because they want it to feel new. And that's fine too. But I just can't help but feel like we're getting to a point where this stuff is a little too far. And I wouldn't personally call this a classic plus. I don't think it is a classic plus. I think it's just, it looks like just like a retail upgrade to classic. It's a little bit too much, and I think that it needs to be dialed back. And if and when Blizzard does their own thing, I hope that they realize that as well. I hope they realize that I loved SOD, I enjoyed SOD, and I know a lot of you guys did as well, but if they go down the same route as SOD, it does feel a little gimmicky. The game should still feel very slow-paced. It should keep the same pacing as vanilla, and maybe even have systems in place to slow people down even more, because people play differently now. The game should never have a 200% XP boost or anything like that. It's fine in a seasonal mindset, but when you're talking about a more permanent game mode, I think we really, really, really need to stick to that slower gameplay style. And that's where I keep coming back to the way Turtle WoW did everything. I think that essentially that is the version of Classic Plus that Blizzard should go with. Turtle WoW nailed it. They made the game feel like the old game with some new content, new additions, and content that really was crafted that fit in the Warcraft, in the vanilla World of Warcraft universe. It feels like the OG Blizzard devs made that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it fit in the world, and it still felt slow. Like, leveling a warrior early on still felt like shit if you didn't have gear. You still died in caves. You know, all of that stuff I think it's extremely important, and people forget that. People see all like new and flashy things, and they just, at this point, everyone's starving for anything new, that they just will take anything that's given to them at this point. And I think that's where you start to create a problem where you deviate from the path of like what people originally wanted for a Classic Plus. And now we're at this point where basically people just want fucking retail. And I gotta come out and say it. And I will always tell you guys exactly how I feel. And that's what I'm seeing in the community right now. A lot of people, it started as like, we just want a little bit of new content in vanilla and like not class balancing, but like make sure every class is viable and like all that. And that makes sense. And that sounds good. And it started as like, we want TBC talents. And now we're getting like, people want Wrath talents and new abilities and, all this crazy AoE. And maybe we should have 4 or 5 classes that could battle res and all this. And it's like, dude, you guys are forgetting this exists. It's called modern WoW. It's called retail. It exists, and you don't want to play it. Why are you trying to make classic the same way? And that's how I feel. And I feel like at this point, I have to start sharing my honest opinions, even if it's not popular with the community, because I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm stepping back and saying, hey, you know what? Like, I do want a Classic Plus, but I want a Classic Plus that's more in line with vanilla. I want it to have new content. I want it to have new features, new systems, sure, all of that stuff. But the game has to feel like vanilla. It has to still have that slow pace. It still has to have that adventure. It still has to have, a reason why you'd bring this class over this class, because this class does mass amounts of AoE and this one doesn't. So we need it for this specific thing that we're doing. Like, I just feel like once you start getting to a point where there's so many different systems, so many different ways to play your character, so many different ways to upgrade your spells and your gear, we start to lose sight now of what actually made the game special in the first place. Because all of these things you know, everyone always said that what did people say in vanilla, that the world was the main character. You were just someone going through that, adventuring through that world. When you have things like this, what this does is kind of puts the focus on you and your character, and you now become the main character. You need to scour the world looking for all these upgrades and improvements and all this stuff, because you don't want to be worse than the other guy who's coming to your raid that's the same class that has all those upgrades and improvements, right? It's no longer about the world. It's about, let me look up all these guides because this stuff's all been found now, and where do I get them? And now you go out and you're not doing shit. You're just going and you're just min-maxing. You're just meta chasing, which is what everyone does, including myself, right? And that's what it will turn into. I think that if Blizzard looked to these private servers for any examples of what they should be doing, I think Turtle WoW had the best example. You know, I know they're being sued by Blizzard right now. I know that, you know, like, it's just a weird time, man. It's a weird time to talk about all this stuff, and it's so incredibly gray. It's such a gray area, but I have to share my opinions and thoughts on this stuff with you guys. I think that we're kind of deviating a little bit from the original vision for Classic Plus from the community, and I think what's happening is people are setting themselves up for a big letdown when we do eventually get a Classic Plus. And I don't think it's Blizzard's fault. I think Blizzard might actually deliver on a good Classic Plus experience. I think they have a good amount of information at this point to put together something that they know players want. But it's one of these things where people are becoming desensitized to less and less stuff here in the game, and they want more and more and more. And we're at a point now where people just are looking at retail WoW and they're like, this is Classic Plus, like, this is good. And it exists. Just go play retail. I'm sorry, I don't have any other way to say it. I don't have a nice way to say it, but people are starting to get a little bit delusional here. You know, what separated Classic and retail is extremely important, and we're kind of going over that line now to a point where we are hitting basically retail territory in Classic with some of these Classic Plus private servers. And I'm very curious, and I want to know, like, what you guys think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Am I delusional? I don't know. But I still have this original vision for Classic Plus. And my original vision for Classic Plus really does align with what Turtle WoW did with Mysteries of Azeroth or whatever. It keeps the spirit of vanilla alive. It keeps the game feeling like vanilla WoW. They just expanded on what was already there. They didn't change the game completely. They added some quality of life. They just built it out in the world, and to me, that is the right way to do it. I don't want to see a million systems and currencies or enhancements and upgrades and all this stuff to your abilities and gear. I don't want it to get like that, because, to be honest, Classic WoW is so good because of its simplicity. So I hope Blizzard knows their target audience for this, and when they go and work on this stuff, I really do hope that they follow that same trajectory as Turtle, and really build the game to be a slow-paced game, to be a game that makes you want to keep playing through the world. And you know what? There's some stuff that I've seen here in Ascension that I also want to call out, like, oh, you looted this, like, bind on account epic out in the world, and now you want to make an alt to level with that epic. Like, that's not it. That's retail, in my opinion, you know? And no disrespect to the Ascension devs, a lot of this stuff is amazing that you've done. But there's certain systems and things that I just personally don't agree with. It's my personal opinion. So anyone watching this, don't take this as a personal attack on you. This is just my opinion. It shouldn't be that way. You should want to go level a new character because in 2 months they came out with a patch that had 2 or 3 new leveling zones and a couple of new dungeons that were pretty epic looking and all that. That should entice you to go level a character. Not the fact that you're out in the world and you found 3 or 4 epics that are bind on account that you could send to a level 1 alt and start one-shotting mobs, and that is not Classic to me. I'll die on that hill. I don't believe that should ever be in Classic. That is not Classic Plus. It makes it feel gimmicky. I don't want heirlooms. I don't want XP boosts. I don't want any of that stuff because I want a true raw experience. And if the game is good enough and has enough new content, for anyone who's going to argue, we've already leveled through this a million times, this and that, I get it. I'm the same way with vanilla. But if the game has enough new content and things you want to see while leveling up, that feeling goes away and you're actually enjoying playing the game. And the game isn't about hitting max level at that point. You're just enjoying playing your character, leveling up, seeing all this new content and stuff. So that's it. I just wanted to have this video today, a bit of a rant, because I saw this and I was like, you know what? I got to share how I feel about this, even if it's a little bit controversial. I know I'm going to get a lot of people that disagree with me and maybe agree with me, but let me know down in the comments. I want to hear from all of you either way. I'm down for open discussion. And if you guys want to talk about it even further, we'll talk about it on stream tonight. We stream Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. over on kick.com/hammerdance. So come support me over there. You get to watch. I don't have ads on or anything. No ads. We just stream and have a good time. And we'll talk about it. And yeah, I'm just trying to follow through on what I always say. Trying to just give my honest thoughts and opinions, whether you guys like it or not. This is how I feel about it. I'm curious how you guys feel about it. Subscribe to the channel if you love Classic WoW just as much as me. And that's all I've got for you today. So thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.